I tell my clients, and it's derogatory, but I say when you say F you to your boss because you hate your job, right? There's gonna be two things you're gonna do. One thing is if you don't have the money saved, you're gonna be, oh Lord, please forgive me, Lord. You know it's not in my spirit, my soul. You know it was not. That's because you didn't have the money, which with money equals power. But if you have the money, and you will be talking to your friends, girl, I told him this. I don't care what happens tomorrow. The thing is, because now you have power and control. But if you keep spending money on your dress and not being disciplined with your money, you could never tell your boss off if you wanted to. You're always going to be slave to him and whatever he says, even though you can't stand him when you don't feel like you want to work on Monday.
Yeah. You're right. And I like that analogy too, because what happens is we work extremely hard, right? And what do we have to show for it? Some stuff?
Yeah,
some stuff
that gets old and out of date.
I think the conversation we need to start having as a people, we're all black up in here, so let's make it cool to compare notes and really, and I'm trying to push people to think about how much are you really worth. You know, what are you worth? Right? That's the million. What are you worth? I know people that make $200,000-$300,000, but they're not worth anything because this right here is taking advantage of them. Lifestyle and their debt. You know, they made all these choices because they're trying to keep up with everybody else and impress people, but what are you worth?
That's the culture component that I mentioned earlier.
It is.
And how do you take this information here and get that to people who are not here but are practicing that kind of behavior and steadily as a community, we don't have any savings. Because it all goes out.
I tell you what. So some of it is you know it's how we were raised, right? It's our neighbors, our families. But look at the government. They can never balance the budget, and there are a group of people. So you as an individual think you can outdo the government because most people can't, and the government is terrible at doing. Well, we gotta cut this out. Well, we need to keep this. Oh, and it's a constant. Every year the budget is an issue, and we're still in debt. So we think as individuals, we somehow miraculously just I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, I'm gonna be out of debt. I'm gonna be wealthy tomorrow. Not gonna happen. It's gonna take some work. It's gonna be hard and grueling, but if you do it and consistently take the steps forward, it gets easier. Yes, sir.
So our Mormon brothers and sisters out of Utah, who basically, you know, there's special provisions in government passed that if the United States ever goes down, we have the right to confiscate all their food and other things that they've been storing. Yeah. So the idea is that if they intentionally, if the Mormons or other people intentionally conspire to bring down the United States, the Mormons are at an advantage because by definition they keep a year's worth of food in their house. Right. That's part of being in the Mormon culture, right? Which means if you and I as African Americans don't have any, you know, stash, we're starved out in maybe 2-3 weeks maybe. And then they're at a strategic advantage, you know, military advantage because they stockpile, right? The other thing they do collectively is they say every man is a minister, and what that does is says your domicile, your place where you sleep, is considered part of the parish. And what that does is it says that this place, whatever rent you pay in this place is totally what? Tax deductible, and your income from the Mormon church is totally what? Undisclosable to who? The IRS, because it's a part of the church, right? So if we have institutions like Allen Temple and Wosei, my question would be is, why isn't everybody a minister, right? Why do we have to report how much money comes through Wosei to my pocket, right? I don't, right? And why, if I have to pay rent, I can make it look as much as I want. I can say I spend $5,000 a month for what we know costs X amount, right? Who's going to know, right? So if these are the games our competitions is playing against us, we should take advantage of it before it gets taken out. Thank you.
Great point. Taxes. Huge. It affects all that we come around. You gotta have a tax person on your team. So as you look at trying to create a plan, somebody who does taxes needs to be a part of your team. Because maybe you can do some things to avoid paying taxes. Maybe there's a few more deductions you can take or things like that. I'm not a tax professional, but I encourage everybody. Part of your plan is knowing somebody that is a tax professional. It affects all that we do. So I'm trying to make sure I touch on all the points. I did hand out a brief piece about credit. I know that's another issue in our communities. Credit. Yes, ma'am.
I know. 3 of us, at least in this room, Brother Shango, Kalabasi, and myself, are retired.
Yeah.
So that's probably a whole nother seminar. What do we do? Because I find now that the income is what it is. And when I was working,
Are you working, being retired? Because I have a lot of clients who retire and get a second job because that's what they want to do.
Or some.
That's a huge thing.
that was
Some of them,
not
but
my
I have some
plan.
clients. There's some people is a second career. It's basically business entrepreneurship and getting just a job in a totally different field.
Well, what's happening is I'm finding that I haven't found that husband yet, which is that second income. The new husband yet. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, in order for me to do some of the things that I want to do, am I really going to have to look for another job? I mean, and that was not the plan. But the plan, there was no plan, so that was the plan. I retired within an hour. I mean, it was the most phenomenal thing. I went to my doctor and I was like, you need to give me a note that says I don't have to go back to Kaiser anymore. He says, okay. And he wrote me the note. I took the note back to my job, got on my computer, said thank you very much for these 28 years of service, put it on my supervisor's desk, took that note to Social Security. I was back home in an hour and a half and I was sitting in my house going, wow, you just retired. You just retired. I was like, oh my God, yes. So, I had looked into some things. I knew how much money I was going to get from Kaiser and stuff like that. And, now that I think about it, you could have stayed a little longer. But it's done, So, wow, yeah. I retired a little early, but, it's still.
So the thing that I want to stress to people too, if you're not retired, it's just, I know when that day does come where you want to do the Jason method or your method, I want to know that I can survive the next 30 years.
Exactly.
We don't really think that long. We think about, well, I'm off tomorrow and next week and next month. And there's a whole thing called life. And unless you have this little crystal ball and you know exactly the day you're going to pass away, live it up. You can spend everything on your lifestyle. I don't care. But the fact that we can't foresee that far into the future, what if I do live? Because I know my generation always says, well, you only live once. Alright, so just tell me how long you're going to live, and then we can plan accordingly. But I'm going to plan that I just might live. Just in case I live, I'm going to do some of this stuff to make sure I have an easier life going forward. But I know when it's all said and done for me in terms of retirement, whatever that really means, whatever, it has a different definition for everybody. Retirement is nothing more than you saying, you know what, I'm gonna go do what I love to do, and I don't need a paycheck for it. That's all that is. It's just, I think it's Prudential has that commercial where they ask people if
they give them
they drawn that little board in that park and like, well, what would you be doing if you had all the money, or if you were retired and had all the money, what would you really do? People are like, well, I would be a doctor, I'd be a writer, because then you're gonna do all the things you really love to do. Because a lot of us work in jobs that we don't like. We hate our boss, we hate our job, but I gotta pay my bills. I gotta do all this stuff, so I know I need a job. And I think a lot of us aren't happy, but I guarantee you'd be happy if you adhere to some type of plan, however robust it may be, and then when that day comes, knowing that, oh, I'm good, I'm out. You just walk out. But we don't have that luxury. We fantasize about it. We see other people who do it, but they can afford to do it, or they may have other resources. Maybe there's family that's going to support them. I met an Asian client of mine. Strangest thing in the world, but the whole family said he had 4 kids. So his retirement plan was he saved a little bit, had a pension from his career, but he said part of his family legacy is that once the children go to school and get jobs, they pay me monthly. So he has monthly deposits going into his checking account from his 4 children. So that supplements all the stuff that he did. Now, God bless you if you can get your kids to do anything for you at that age, but that was the model. I expect we got you through school. You got this job. I don't care what you're doing. You're gonna pay me. I need my $200 a month.
Excellent.
So that was
that culture component.
It was ingrained from the get-go. We were speaking before. I said there was an expectation I was going to college. Lo and behold, I went. There was no, you gonna go get a job. No, dude, you going to school, you gonna learn something first, and then go work. But we expect to fail almost. We expect these things to just happen, and it's not. If we don't do the work, it won't get done. Yes, sir.
You know, it's interesting that you said that, because I said to my daughter from day one, from the time she was very little until she's 38, I said there's one key question that you have to ask your potential fiance. He said, "What's that question, Daddy?" I said, "The question is, when my daddy get old, can he stay with us? And if you say no, cut him off."
Oh, wow.
Cut him off. But I guess for the most part, she's going with that because she's 38, she ain't married yet.
It may
That's right.
take her a while.
Anyway,
That's right. Go ahead.
on to credit.
Yeah. So credit, we know how it affects all that we do. It's your way of showing people that you're worthy of paying me back.
Right.
It's a number. It's just numbers, but it holds a lot of weight for things that we want to do and purchase. So the breakdown on the page just talks about how your credit score is comprised. Some of these percentages may fluctuate from year to year, but this is a good kind of framework for you to realize what really is included with your credit score.
And negative information stays on for 7 years?
Stays on for a while. So checking your credit is how you're going to avoid some of those negative pieces. And I saw your hand about. Come on. Yes, sir.
And now with video, if you could give us your name, the organizations you're with, and if you want to shamelessly plug your colleagues, that's fine too.
Yeah. So again, Jasper Smith. I'm the president of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of the Urban Financial Services Coalition. We are a volunteer-based nonprofit organization that is challenged to financially empower our communities. And part of that is by doing financial workshops like we are doing today, and also to encouraging our youth to really learn some of these basic principles of how to learn that language of money, because it's a language, right? And what we've realized is that the earlier we start doing some of these things and creating these habits, the more financially literate we'll all become as a people. The other component of the organization too is to inspire our youth to consider financial services careers. I didn't know I wanted to be a financial planner. I don't know about you two gentlemen. I just knew that I could go to school, get a job. I didn't want to be a doctor because my daddy's one. I don't like school that much. I didn't want to be a doctor. Right? Doctors, lawyers, firefighters, police, all the popular occupations. But money you make money in all these different roles too. So I was trying to figure, okay, well, this money thing, I might want to know a little bit more about it. So trying to encourage kids to actually pursue financial services careers is another, mission or goal of ours to really promote our professions in particular.
And you guys all live in San Francisco?
We do not. So he asked that
I was
question
going to
a
say,
little
if you live in San Francisco, yes, I want to follow you, because if you can afford to live in San Francisco.
I don't live in San Francisco.
Okay.
We're based, we're the Bay Area chapter. We have members in San Francisco, Oakland, the Far East Bay, the 680 area. We have people in the South Bay, but we're a Bay Area organization, so we're trying to entrench ourselves in various communities just to do workshops like this, plug in. That's what we want to do. Yes.
Can you, before your time expires, touch on the community service? We are 501c3.
Yeah.
And we always are looking for additional resources to expand our work and do more from our position here in the community.
Yeah. So I'm coming right to that question. So just the two gentlemen here, they're also members of the organization. Actually, George Hill is our education chairperson. So George, I've known George for a couple of years now. He's recently come on as a member. And I think part of our mission, and George has the same philosophy, he loves educating. He's a financial planner by trade also, but he is elected to be our education chairperson because these type of forums are extremely critical, no matter if you're young, if you're in mid-career, if you're winding down in your career, or if you're actually retired. So I know George has a passion for this industry, this business, and alongside George is Jason Matthews, also one of our members. Actually, like I said, both of these gentlemen are entrepreneurs. They run their own financial planning practices, so they have their areas of specialty. But just a quick introduction to those two gentlemen. So I appreciate them both for coming out today because everybody has their methods, and you see we kind of got into like the little triangle. There's this whole financial planning thing, and it's interesting because there's so much information, right? And we all kind of struggle with all of this information, but it's really about thinking about what is it that we want to do, right? We got to have that goal to start out. So I realized that as complicated as financial planning can be sometimes, it's really taking that step back and saying, you know what, step one, if you don't do this, the rest of it ain't gonna work. I mean, it really isn't. You can't be thinking about retirement if you don't have money in the bank, you know, an emergency fund. So that's why I think these type of forums are important, and I hope and wish that we can do better about attending, you know, these type of functions and just sharing the word with people. Even if you leave here today, I mean, hopefully something has touched you by what, you know, one of us has mentioned, the dialogue, the conversation, because it has to become a conversation that is normal, that is comfortable in having. You know, we hate telling people, well, how much money do you make? Ooh, that's personal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were at the club with me last night, we did all this stuff, we was at that party. I think that's more personal than knowing how much money you make. But we've almost programmed ourselves to say that, you know, I can't talk about money around you. I'm not going to tell you how much I work. I'm not going to tell you how much debt I have. Well, you know, you're never going to get out of that hole, you know, tell anybody that you need a rope.
That's a big problem. That's a real big problem, because whatever money people make, they're always don't want nobody to know.
Yeah.
And you have to open up to someone to help you with this. The only reason I wanted to talk about the pyramid, because conceptually there are parts that makes the whole picture. There's parts that make the whole picture, and without knowing those parts, you can't drill. You don't know where you fit in the picture. You know, this is so. You know, yeah, that's what I want to say.
Okay, so I would just like.
I'm going to get back to him. There are a lot of groups. There's the Coalition. There's
Operation Hope.
There's Operation Hope. Actually, I've been doing a lot of reading. There's actually this Office of Financial Empowerment in San Francisco. So I'm getting in discussions with them to see about what type of programs they have. There are a lot of these financial empowerment, financial education organizations. Some of them are governmental based. Others are just nonprofit organizations that want to promote this financial gospel, if you will. So we're one of those catalysts that are trying to bring together these groups and all try to figure out how we can all just kind of plug into our various neighborhoods to have a bigger impact. So I have a few of them on the list, and I can just follow with me. I can kind of give you a short list of what I have in terms of information for that. But a lot of different programs. Even on the credit piece, there's Credit Counseling Service in San Francisco. Operation Hope has a 700 program with, you know, helping get your credit adjusted. So I always like to touch on credit because we somehow have these credit issues, right? So if you don't learn about it and understand how it works, then, you know, that's an issue as well. So
Excellent.
you know, information. All right, well, what do you do with the information once you get it? Do you read it? Do you share it? Do you know, tell your friends? Because to Jordan's points about not talking, you know, one of my goals has been that when I am, let's say, I'm 50 years old, when I look at my circle of friends, I might just call somebody up and they say, hey, let's go to Europe. Just cuz, right? And I don't want you, if you're a good friend of mine, to say, I can't afford it. Now, if you got a family reason, I'll take it all day long. But don't say that you can't afford it and you've known me for, I don't know, my whole life. So it's hard sometimes to sell our friends and family, and I'm sure both of you have run into that being in the business. But we only do it because we care. Like, I don't want to be at this party or function and you say you can't afford the ticket for the gala. I'm not paying your way. But what I will do is take pictures and say, wish you were here. Had you listened to me, you know, it's one of those, I know I'm going to have to say I told you so to a lot of my friends. Because I'm very active on social media. And it is it's unbelievable the amount of people that like what I share. Now, I don't have time to follow up on every single post that I do, but I almost want to call everybody and say, you know what, you liked it. Now, did you read the article? Did you share the article? Because there's probably somebody, if not yourself, who can benefit from this piece that I just put out there in the world. Because I think we kind of just tiptoe around. Oh, it's kind of cool. I know Jasper's doing this stuff. I know about it. Like, I'm gonna tell everybody I was here today again. I was at a workshop. I do workshops all the time. Oh, Jasper, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You're doing this. So very few of my friends call me and ask me for help. and I know they're struggling. So my friend yesterday just called me. I knew he was. He worked at Xerox. He was selling copiers and things. Really good sales guy. And just found out. He called me yesterday. He said, "Hey, I haven't been at my firm in about 6 months. I hopped out. He got some contracts with Xerox, Toshiba, doing his own thing, and called me and said, look, I need your help because he has a little boy. And he's really starting to think about, okay, now I'm making money hand over fist, and you my boy." There are people in Durham, North Carolina who can help him. But he called me. You know, we look for all these. We look for all these ways to help ourselves and arms reach. Hey, need your help. So as I looked at the people that I associate myself with, if I have questions about anything, I know it's a phone call away. If I don't know them personally, I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows something about it. And it's just that willingness to ask. That's all it is. Tell somebody you need some help. Yes, sir.
Yeah, could you say something about the credit scoring thing? Because to me, that was the biggest lesson I learned some years back. Because I used to have a credit score, I used to say, I don't care about that. It was around about 300. Then I had all kind of financial issues when I was at 300. Yeah. And now my credit score is up over 700. Yeah. And financially, I'm just so much better off because I learned the secret of that credit score. And that stuff that you get from FedEx, I mean, what you call it?
Free credit score.
Yeah. But the scores they give is like a funny score. You really got to know what your FICO score is hitting at. But, so in other words, could you go more detail about how important that credit score is?
It's important. So if credit is an issue, you better know what's on your credit report. So too, and she was mentioning it, so if you have some negative things on your report, call them. And just expect that you're going to be in a fight. Because there are a lot of well-to-do people who have these blips on their credit report. But if you don't call and challenge them, they'll stay on there. And then when you're going to get a house or something or making a larger purchase, they're going to say, well, what's this thing, 5 years ago? Well, I don't know. You might want to know what's on your report. So even if it's just taking advantage of the free report every year, check it. I checked my personally. Like I know last year, I got stuff in my past where I know I missed a payment one time because my auto payment was off whack, so I was late. Now I always try to do the little, I'm so sorry, I've been a valued customer of yours, whatever. I've gotten like 5 fees reversed because I asked them to reverse it. If you don't ask them, they're not gonna give it to you. Right. So if you don't call these people and say, hey, why is this on my report? Right. But you're just okay having a blip on your report that you might not have caused. Now I caused all of mine, but I got some of them reversed. Right. Call them. The thing about credit, if somebody owed you money, wouldn't you keep calling them? If you don't call me and say, hey man, I need to set up a payment plan, I'm going through some rough times right now, what can we do? I'm going to pay you back. Just know it's going to happen, but I can't do it today. I cannot do it right now. Ooh, what can we do? But if you don't take that step, and you just keep going and walking like, I know that notice. Ooh, they called me, don't worry about it. Ooh, they might garnish me. Ooh, they're going to keep coming after me. Because you owe them money. Call them. Get your credit report. Make sure you know what's on it. Challenge things if you aren't sure what's on there. But if you don't take that step to really analyze what's on that report, yes, it could adversely affect you. Yes, sir.
So, give the majority of Americans when they retire are not doing too good economically, am I right? A lot of them feel they have to go back and keep working. Is that a structural problem with the society, or we have enough money for wars, so what is this? Why do all these elders need to go back working? I don't get it. Is that a structural thing?
I have an opinion about that.
I have my opinion also.
I'm sure all them. I know this side of the room has opinions.
Is that by design?
No.
Ooh, gosh. Kind of sort of.
I'm just curious.
Some things are by design because of the society that we live in. All right, and knowing how that society works gives you advantages. From the standpoint of taxes, from retirement, knowing how that works. Okay, it's the problem that you have with people today that are struggling with retirement or they don't have the funds. Actually, the onus is really on them because they didn't They didn't take the step. You know, one of the things as an advice of what I try to do, I try to get the young man, like Jasper, when they got their first job and they're making money, I try to sit down and talk to them and explain to them, retirement is today. Retirement is at 23 years old.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Because when you're 23 years old, you only have to put $100 away compared to $500 when you're 50 years old.
Yes.
All right? So what you're talking about, yeah, it's a societal thing, but it's an individual thing. It's why we're in these rooms right now trying to explain to our people about the importance of being literate about finances.
Being conscious of your decisions.
Understanding the finances. You know, other ethnic groups, cultures,
Right.
they are ahead because in the home, they're explained about finances.
Right.
Now, we, as African Americans, we had a hard time with even getting a decent education. My parents did not know anything about saving money. We was trying to put money in the house to feed us. Okay? I just happened to get an education to learn about finances. That's why I'm here today, to at least share what I know.
Yeah.
So if I can get to the young person, however little they are, and explain to them about compounding money, how money works, understand where the different tax plays on your money. Because it's another thing. Most people don't understand. There's different boxes of money and how the government look at it. There's taxable, it's tax deferred, there's no tax. All right? A lot of affluent people, a lot of people who come up to households that know about money, they know about the no tax.
Yes.
A lot of us don't know that.
Yes.
You know, it's where you go to get the money. When you're talking about, buddy, where do I go get the money? I got a savings account, I got a retirement account. I had somebody tell me, you know, my son needed a car, so I went into my 401k to get the car. You just lost 50% of your money. So it's these little intricate things that, you know, we have to know from a conceptual standpoint, which was my point earlier, and then we have to know how to drill in each one of those areas and understand how it applies to us.
Right.
You know, so it's not. We have to start talking. Stop talking about. We have to stop talking about them. All right. We have to start talking about us. All right. Because them know what's going on.
Yes.
Us don't.
Yes.
All right. You know, and until we get into groups like this and really explaining what's going on, because again, certain households, these type of conversations, and when kids come out, they're like 10, 15 years ahead of somebody like me, just because of the background that they have.
Absolutely.
Right. And one thing, like you said earlier, how can you spread the word?
Right.
It's easy. For instance, I have a lot of my clients. I have three straight blocks of Tracy clients. Now, every time that they graduate, one graduated school, get their first job, guess who they sit down with? The 22-year-old kid. Me. Right?